All right, ladies and gentlemen, Fab's in the house, and welcome back to the channel. I got a Voigtlander VC Meter Mark II here with me to review. Let's just check it out. A nice green box, manual, certificate of authenticity, I would say, or warranty. And we are more interested in this thing. This is the Mark II, so it's an upgrade from the Mark I, which was released in 2001. This is from 2006. So size is kind of the same in volume, let's say, because this is a little bit thinner and but a little bit wider. Weight-wise is pretty much the same. I mean, this is like 7 grams lighter, so you have that bonus. As far as the metering angle, this guy will be 30 degrees. So it matches a 75 millimeter, I would say, Leica frame line. It has a range that for measuring the light, it goes from EV1 to EV20. So I would say 1 second at f1.4 to 2000 of a second at f22. The ISO range, which you can set in this sub dial over here, it just goes from 25 to 3200, which is the same as the old one. It works with two battery LR44. They go like that in this little compartment on the bottom, and they work for, like, I don't know, 2 years, like a year for sure. So it just is going to take you quite some pictures to drain those batteries. It has, you know, the classic sliding cold shoe to slide into pretty much any camera you have. So, of course, this is a tool-free battery compartment. You just slide it out, and it just goes into pretty much every camera. It has a dial layout, you know, right over here, 2 dials. One is for the aperture on the left, and one is for the shutter speed on the right. You have 5 equivalent lines, which are intended if you make one reading, for example, half a second at 1/8 of a second at f2, it means that you automatically can read the other couples, 2 above and 2 below. So 1/4 of a second is going to go with 2/8, half of a second is going to go to f4, 15 of a second 1/4, and 30 of a second f1. Actually, I said before f1.4, but actually it goes to f1. Anyways, these are the combo that you can actually see already as soon as you do the first measurement, which is done by pressing the orange button and then rotating, for example, in the direction of the arrow that is pointing, you see, like red, it says just go this way. So you have to rotate, for example, this thing this way, right? So this dial, and until it gets onto the green. So you know that you're gonna have a pretty accurate, within 30 degrees of an angle reading. So let's say measure like that, a little bit lower, and I'm gonna have this kind of reading. So now it's 3200. Of course, let's do something more reasonable because I'm pointing at a source of light. So let's do 100 ISO, like so. And let's do another reading, and we're gonna have, let's say, something like this, more reasonable, 250 of a second between 11 and 16, right? You see half of a stop pretty much. So that is one of the drawbacks, you know, the accuracy. It's not insane, especially if you're shooting slides, but still, it is very, very reliable. So you have around 6 of 8 seconds to read, sorry, the 30 seconds, I think it's the continuous reading once you press, but if you keep it pressed, you have a live read if you want to just scan the area, but it's a little bit cumbersome. I wouldn't use it for that. I would just point it to the area that I'm thinking it's going to be right. Then I just press it once, and then I'm just gonna hold it up and then find the reading. So I'm just gonna find that 2 and 2/50 of a second, and I'm gonna punch it in into the camera. So that's how I operate this little thing. So really, from the previous model, it changes the lower profile. The weight is kind of like the same. You have a repositional foot, which is a big deal for if you use, for example, a Nikon S2. You know, it's impossible to use this with you know, the Mark 1, because it cannot be repositioned, the foot. So here you can have it in the center and leave a little bit more space to the right of the meter, because you see there is a foot that is on the right side, right over here. So for example, I mean, in a Leica, this works perfectly to be mounted on the left side. So that, sorry, the left side is free because you have on the right side the dials. So, also, as you can see, the profile is very clean. It's low, so it doesn't ruin the aesthetics of the camera. Even if this would have been, you know, silver, would have been looking better for, you know, to match the body, but M7 doesn't need this because there's a light meter inside, so don't worry about that. Mainly, I use it with this one, with the Fuji, and again, because you have this dial over here, it works pretty perfectly to be mounted on the with the hot shoe, with the cold shoe, sorry, mounted on the right side. So you have a perfect clearance, you can see the level, you can see everything. So this is going to be very good. Another place where I mount that is in on this Horseman, right over here. And I just mount it over here next to the finder, just to allow me to measure with cameras that don't have a light meter. So really cool repositionable foot option. You have quicker battery swaps compared to the previous model, because flip door beats the coin slot plug, especially if you're in the street. You have a overall cleaner readout, I would say. You know, the painted coupling lines, they give instant one-stop variants, and you know, it's pretty handy if you want to do motion blur, you know, or reciprocity, and you know, very, very clean reading. You have also you know, the sub-dial for the, sorry, ISO right over here, which is adjusted with this little knob. It's, yeah, it's not, I would have preferred a little bit stiffer, but it works. Also, you have clicked wheel over here and just continuous wheel over here. I would say, you know, the cons and pros for this fella. So the strengths are, for sure, you know, it's tiny metal brick that lives in the shoe. You know, you don't need to put this in the pocket. No fumbling with a light meter, lanyard. Just forget about that. You leave it on the camera. Also, it's a one-handed operation because, you know, 3 LED, you know, they are daylight visible. So with one hand, you just push it and you just operate. So very, very quick to use. Another pro, of course, is the sliding foot and the low height, that it's pretty much compatible with almost every rangefinder in circulation. Another pro is that it runs on cheap, commonly available cells. You know, it doesn't need any mercury, obscure batteries that you're not going to be able to find. So that's always going to go. And also 30 seconds recall feature is pretty invaluable when you have to recompose or when you're swapping lenses. That's also a nice feature to have. The trade-offs of this little guy are, of course, that you have, you know, one LED step, you know, that's like half of a stop of resolution, let's say. So if you're shooting slides, you still want a bracket, but it's so expensive, so you gotta, you know, perfect your exposure game. There is no lock on the ISO ring, so that is a little bit of a turn off. It's still possible to knock it off with gloves. I mean, if you're not too careful. It's not a spot meter. That's the main drawback. So it's a 30 degrees angle. So keep that in mind. It's not a spot meter. So you gotta know this, how much is checking to tell you the light. Also, another thing that, let's say trade-off, it's not flash capable, so this is not gonna be able to meter flash. So keep that in mind. And also another drawback is the price. These are not cheap. These are like 200 bucks at least. So you're sliding towards the fully featured Sekonic territory. So keep that in mind. It's, with 300 bucks, you get a full-on flash meters, but you lose many of the factors that are beautifully embedded, engineered, designed into this tiny meter. This, at the end of the day, it keeps everything that made the original a cult classic. Speed, elegance, build quality. Solves the two biggest annoyances, height and shoe placement. And if you can live with that half-stop LED and the occasional ISO ring nudge, it's pretty much the most practical way to give a meterless Leica, like pre-M5 or Nikon S mount or Contax also, giving like a modern, accurate, reflected light meter without spoiling the camera lines, because I know you guys like the lines of the Contax. I know you guys like the lines of the Nikon S and Leica M, of course. And this thing is just gonna be looking good. And for most film shooters, this earns like a permanent spot on the shoe. And that's what happens with me and my Fuji GW690 Mark III, because it just perfect, matches the black finish and just stays there. Sometimes, it gets borrowed by the Horseman SW612 or 617, but for those, I'm preferring to use like a spot meter. And this is a pretty cool and invaluable tool if you're lacking a meter inside your camera. So check it out. This is the Voigtlander VC meter Mark II. There you have it. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching. Stay tuned.